Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 677. Got a great guest. Got my new regular co-host. Got Andrew Palmer with me, the only Andrew Palmer. And we have, like I say, a fabulous guest. We got Lesley Sim, the joint founder of Newsletterglue. We're going to be discussing why she started this new service and this new plugin. Some of the things she's learned on the journey. It's going to be a great discussion. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this particular interview, we're going to go and hear a message from my great major sponsor, Castos. We will be back in a moment. We're coming back. Castos, great tribe. They're giving us a great special offer, only to you, tribe, and also some of the other great sponsors like Bertha, the great product which Andrew runs. They've all got special offers, and I've got some great recommendations, and you can get all these goodies by going to the WP-Tonic /recommendations, and you find them all there, tribe. So I'm going to let Lesley do a quick intro. So Lesley, give the tribe a quick intro about yourself, Lesley.
Hey everyone, nice to be on the show, and thanks Jonathan and Andrew for having me. I am Lesley. I live in Singapore and I run Newsletterglue together with my co-founder. So I do the business and marketing side of things, and he does all the development. Newsletterglue is a WordPress plugin. We connect now with 12 email service providers. So, whether that's MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, Campaign Monitor, and a whole bunch of others, we connect your email service provider to WordPress and let you send out newsletters and posts through the blog editor. So it makes writing newsletters feel like you're just writing a blog post, which saves you. If you've ever tried writing a newsletter in MailChimp and have struggled and fought with the MailChimp blog editor before, you'll know how much of a pain that is. And so kind of doing it in WordPress is a lot faster. And the other good thing about doing it all in WordPress is it gives you an SEO optimized newsletter archive. So it's no longer, MailChimp, something, bunch of crazy letters. It can be exactly what you want your link to be. And then, if you're doing paid newsletters and all of that, you can restrict the archive easily as well. And so it gets very cool very quickly.
I think you're going into a bit too much depth there.
Yeah.
So I think you answered through the questions already, but we'll get a bit more into it. So, Andrew, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the tribe, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Palmer. I'm the co-founder of Bertha.ai with Vito Peleg, who also runs atarim.io. And I've also got WPPluginsPlus.com, where I sell plugins, and I'm co-host on these kind of shows as well. I like to give my friend Jonathan Denwood some support, and also to meet people virtually like Lesley Sim and many other people. I've been following your journey, Lesley, on Twitter, so it's been interesting.
So, Lesley, you I'm sorry I interrupt, but you were kind of answering.
I went off the deep end.
You did, feel the passion. So, it's a bit linked to your intro. So, this is a very competitive market, Lesley. You've got some really major SaaS based competitors. You mentioned one of them, MailChimp, and you've got a large group of SaaS competitors, and also you've got some WordPress competition. So what attracted you, and why did you think that you could get some traction with Newsletterglue, with your partner, your founder? What attracted you to this particular part of the ecosystem?
So MailChimp is not actually a competitor. They're a partner, because the way that we work is we connect companies like MailChimp to WordPress.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Having said that we do have lots of WordPress plugin competition. And I guess the thing that differentiates us is we have the benefit of, I guess, being fairly new and being new at a time when the WordPress landscape is changing a lot. So we've leveraged a lot of the Gutenberg stuff, and we're the only WordPress plugin or newsletter plugin that lets you do everything from the block editor. Everyone else has their own custom editor, and it has all the problems that come with that. So ours just kind of feels more native to the WordPress experience. So that's kind of like what differentiates us. When it comes to why we decided to go into this, it was scratch my own itch kind of a thing. So before we started Newsletterglue, we had a membership plugin that didn't go so well. It wasn't differentiated enough. I didn't build in public as I'm doing now these days. And we just kind of couldn't get it off the ground. And as we were thinking about closing it, I wasn't kind of sad about it at all, because it was tough right from the start. But we built a MailChimp add-on that let you send posts as emails, like send out your posts as emails, and that was an add-on that I used myself for my own newsletter. And I felt like, okay, I don't care so much about the membership plugin, but I'd be quite sad to lose that tiny add-on. And then I realized, like, the reason why I was sad to lose the add-on was because there wasn't like an obvious substitute out there in the market. And then it made me realize, maybe there's something here, there's something to this. And we pivoted and launched Newsletterglue, and it got way more traction right from day one, and here we are.
All right, so it kind of leads on to the next question. I think you hinted that, because it seems by what you were saying that you learned a lot from the kind of failure of this membership plugin. So what are some of the key lessons, one or two lessons you've learned in the launch of Newsletterglue that might be helpful? Because a lot of our listeners are developers in the WordPress ecosystem. So what's a couple of quick tips, insights you might be able to share connected to the successful launch of Newsletterglue?
Okay, let's try to be structured about this. So I'll try to give 3 tips. The first is to make sure there is a clear differentiation between the thing that you're building and all the other competitors out there. So like with our membership plugin, my co-founder actually has a background. He's built membership plugins for the past 10 years, and he's gotten like hundreds of thousands of downloads from like his employees' membership plugins. And so he felt, okay, let's do this. I know what I'm doing. It's going to be great. And, obviously, like, even if it's 10 times better than the old membership plugin, that's not really enough to make people want to change, because, once you've got everything set up, no one's going to want to move off of, all of their webhooks and integrations and everything. And so that's the first thing, like make sure that you actually have a good differentiator. So where's the static coming from?
I'm not. We can't.
I think it's you, Jonathan.
Is
The static coming from you, yeah. Just mute your mic.
Oh, right. I apologise. Everything's going on today, isn't it? I can't.
I think you're coming through the wrong mic.
Am I? All right. Good.
Just mute while Lesley.
You take over, actually. Can you, and I'll mute. Right.
That's it, Lesley, you carry on.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the first one, like I was mentioning, is you have to make sure it's super differentiated, something really different that's going to convince people to switch. The second is build in public. So the first thing that the mistake that we made with our first plugin, our membership plugin, was my co-founder had kind of built it for months and months without telling anyone about it, without launching, without, getting people excited about it. And so understandably, when we tried to launch it, people were like, who are you? We don't know you. Why would we trust our membership business with you? And all of that stuff. So with Newsletterglue, from day one, I started going on Twitter a lot, was active in the post status Slack and did a whole bunch of different things to kind of get the word out there and make people excited, and importantly, get people to trust me and know and feel like, you know, they can trust me with their newsletters. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is just kind of like network and meet people in the WordPress industry, like yourselves. Like, it's really cool, you know, to chat with people who have way more experience than me, who've been there, done that, and can, you know, from afar already know all the mistakes that I'm making and just be like, hey, I see that you're doing this, like, stop it, or like change this, and, you know, your business will go better. And the only way to get that kind of advice is by networking and meeting people and kind of, you know, going on these podcasts, or going, you know, talking to people in DMs and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so those are the 3 tips that I'd say have really helped me and helped our
Perfect. Well,
plugin.
we've still got issues from Jonathan's microphone, I think.
Oh, right. It's still not working.
So I'll take that over, because every time he speaks, it's going through people's spines. One of the interesting things that just put yourself on mute, Jonathan, because we've got static there. That's great. One of the interesting things that you said about there is building in public. Now, there's a lot of WordPress developers that are out there building in public, and it kind of, do you feel that sometimes you've been giving away some secrets, or because we're all GPL driven, your Newsletterglue is a freemium or premium plugin, and it ties together nicely all of these mail services, and it allows people to use the block editor. Have you built skins for them? Have you built any kind of layouts in the block editor that people can use? Yep. I know you have, because I've tested it, obviously, but that's part of the development process, isn't it? To make it easier than MailChimp, MailerLite, ActiveCampaign, all these kind of things, and tying them all in together. And how have you felt about building in public? Do you feel exposed, or do you feel enlightened by it?
Well, I mean, the one thing that's nice about WordPress and the ecosystem is that I'm never going to be the one who's the most open. Like, you know, you've got people like Jack from WP Fusion and Pippin who stopped now, but he used to post these super detailed, in-depth yearly reviews, going into the numbers and everything. And like Jack Arturo is doing that now as well. So like when it comes to building in public, I don't feel like I'm anywhere close to as open as those guys. So yeah, I don't think that I'm doing anything. I'm not like revealing anything proprietary or anything like that. And having tried to build this business for a short while now, it's becoming more and more obvious that there's so many things that you have to do and get right than like the tiny layer that you show out. You know, it's like the iceberg thing, right? Like what you see in that's built in public stuff, like it's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
In comparison to the million other things that you're doing behind the scenes.
And so, having to run a plugin business. Right, we're at the 15-minute mark, so we have to go off and see our lovely sponsors again. So just give us a few seconds, and we'll go off and have a word from our sponsors.
How's it sounding now?
Sounds good.
Yeah, much better. Yeah. It sounds as though you had a loose wire or something.
Yeah,
what did you change?
I just unplugged the mic. I normally never. Everything's gone wrong today, isn't it? Thanks for jumping in, though, Andrew.
That's what I'm here for. So, right, we're back. That's for the podcast editors. We're back. Right, so Jonathan, you've got some questions here. So I'll carry on, Lesley, if I may, in the second half of the show.
Yeah, can you mention our newsletter?
Oh, yeah, we can. Don't forget, because we're back. Don't forget to go to WP-Tonic.com/newsletters, where you'll get an overview of the WordPress and tech world from our very own founder, Jonathan Denwood. And Overview is speaking very kindly of it. So just don't forget to go to /newsletters, and you'll get a nice little email newsletter from him occasionally. And it also helps the show and spread the news as well. So I'm going to ask a question of Lesley. So what's been the major things that you've learned? And you've kind of skimmed over them just there in the last answer you did before we went to the break. So you've learned in the process of getting the Newsletterglue launch, and what things would you do differently? And I'm just going to add a little bit of me on this one. You said the build in public is literally the tip of the iceberg. So that an iceberg is what, 10% of what it should be, and then all under the, it's like a swan, isn't it? And you sit all graceful and everything, and with madly paddling underneath, running the business, dealing with support, dealing with developer issues, dealing with marketing issues. What would you do? What would you do differently if, in fact, you would do anything differently at all? What's been the challenges?
I'm not sure there's anything huge that I would do differently. I think like a lot of the time is like the only time, like you only realize you've done something wrong when you run up against an obstacle, and so like you necessarily have to run up against it to learn from it.
Sure.
So I can't say that like I would do anything differently, because then I might not have learned the things that I've learned, which is a very unsatisfying answer, I know.
Can I just quickly
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Can I quickly butt in? I think, I mean, it's really based on what you were saying in the first half, is that one of the main strengths, and it also can be a two-edged sword, is the community aspect of WordPress. Like you say, you joined a couple of forums, post status, you joined some groups, you utilize your connections, you and your co-founder in the WordPress community, and you got traction through that, didn't you? Which, if you were just a pure SaaS product, you wouldn't have so much. I don't know if Andrew, if you feel I'm overplaying this, Andrew, because I think there's communities in the SaaS community.
Oh, they're massive.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if you feel I'm on the right path, Andrew, that there's more of a community spirit to some extent in the WordPress community. What do you feel about it, Andrew?
Well, I think that there is a community spirit in the WordPress community, but I think it's smaller than people imagine. We've got 250,000.
It's a very tight-knit group.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit nichey really, and sometimes it's a bit cliquey.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful, and also this is brought about by the different products within WordPress as well. We often think of WordPress as, yes, it's 43% of the web, but let's not forget what drives WordPress. It's Newsletterglue, it's page builders, it's memberships, it's LMSs, all that kind of stuff. And we forget that there are communities built around, for instance, the Lifter LMS community is a big community. There's a design group out there, Learn Design and Branding. That was built up from an Elementor group. It was focused on Elementor and how to design in Elementor, and now Cohen has grown that group as a Learn Branding and Design. That's 20,000 people in a Facebook group. Divi, 70,000 people in a Facebook group. So it's although it's a community around WordPress, there's still WordPress because the platform is WordPress. But WordPress core development, core community, post status and all that, they're still built around products rather than WordPress. So, if you go into a WordPress group, it can be a little bit toxic. And as a product developer, if you start talking about your products, that's when the toxicity can start to be even worse. So what we have to do is make sure that we join the groups that are helpful, encouraging, enlightening, educational, fun to be part of. And what I've seen from you, Lesley, is you're a fun person. You've got Lesley got pizza or whatever it is. You obviously like pizza, so you've called yourself Lesley Pizza. Or is there another reason around that self-imposed nickname? So the WordPress community is necessarily separated into these little niches or these big niches. As I say, the Divi theme users group, 70,000 people. Elementor theme users group on Facebook, 50,000 or 60,000 people. So there's a lot of people that go out. But what you've got as Newsletterglue, you've got the whole of WordPress that you're aiming for because it's Gutenberg. So it's Gutenberg native. you've got your patterns, you've done the right thing by going for WordPress core, if you like, but you also appeal to the page builder people. You also appeal to the static WordPress or headless WordPress as well, because you've got your Newsletterglue works in headless, right?
Yep.
Or static. So, a basic HTML site, if you like, as long as it's got the back end of WordPress, because you're obviously using the database to connect and all that kind of stuff. So the interesting part about your journey and your development of your plugin has been that you are all things to all men and women in WordPress. To everybody in WordPress, they can use your product. It's not a niched down product, like it's not for a particular page builder apart from Gutenberg. So I wondered how you made that decision to go into Gutenberg, given if you go into WordPress.org, the negative reviews on Gutenberg plugin are incredibly, let's say, negative.
People are angry.
Okay, I'm going to go into this really negative space and build a plugin that works with Gutenberg. Yeah, nice, well done. So how did you sort of deal with that decision, or was it just a no-brainer? Thought, right, WordPress.
It was kind of a no-brainer for me because I already liked using the block editor a lot better than the classic editor. Maybe not for page building. I'm still not really sold on full site editing yet, but
Sure.
as like a place to blog, I think you'd have a hard time convincing me that the classic editor is better. And so that's the first thing. The second is that train is going. It's left the station. It's heading to. It's going to happen whether people like it or not. And so, as far as I'm concerned, choosing to do everything off of Gutenberg just means that we're future-proofing the plugin. And I feel like that's been a huge differentiator for us, because lots of people now, the older plugins who've been around for 10 or more years are now kind of all rushing to make their plugin, add blocks to their plugins, make it Gutenberg friendly. And I'm just glad that we did that from day one, and we don't have to kind of reverse engineer and stick things on. So yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Really good decision, I think. So it's what's your customer base like? Are they nice to you? What support? How are you dealing with support?
It's been pretty good and bad. So I think the nice thing about building in public is that a lot of people know me, and so by the time they become a customer, they've seen me around somewhere, and so they don't just like complain randomly and lodge angry tickets, because you can only lodge an angry ticket when you're talking to someone faceless. So the people who do feel like they know me tend to be really, really nice and polite, even when they have problems. Having said that, of course, we have customers who, have never heard of me, and they just kind of stumbled upon it, the plugin from a blog post. And so, sometimes it gets frustrating when we get cancellations over super easy, bugs that we could have solved. And as far as they're concerned, it's like, oh, we found a bug, you're hopeless, cancel immediately.
Yeah.
So not much we can do about that, unfortunately. Yeah, I think one thing that I wasn't expecting was how much support we'd have to do.
Yeah.
So like in SaaS, I feel like, okay, I'm just going to throw out a random number. I feel like, in SaaS is like 1/10 of the support, because, you're not dealing with, unlimited number of WordPress configurations, and you're not dealing with plugin conflicts and theme conflicts and all of that stuff. The environment's a lot more controlled, and so when people have problems, it's either going to be a bug that you are personally responsible for, and you solve it and it solves for everybody. Whereas with WordPress, oftentimes you're solving things that aren't necessarily your fault, or it might be kind of tangentially your fault, like something that's kind of related to you, but then you have to hunt into some other host's setup to figure out what they've configured and how that's conflicting with your plugin and all of that stuff. Like, I have a friend who runs a SaaS with a WordPress plugin on top of that to connect to her SaaS, and she doesn't have much support for her SaaS, but she's had to hire 2 WordPress support staff just for her WordPress plugin, which is just kind of goes to show
It's
the
crazy,
difference
yeah.
there.
It is,
Yeah.
and I know because we've got. Jonathan knows, I've got 27 plugins out there, and what people don't understand, if you're paying $10 or $50 even for a plugin, and it doesn't work, the press the refund button is like lightning, and it could be another plugin. We had this situation this morning where a particular plugin wouldn't work because another plugin was using the same hook as us. So how do you monitor that within the 55,000 plugins that are on WP.org and then the 20,000 freemium plugins out there? But one of the things I wanted to understand is, how do you now market? Do you pay for marketing? Do you do your Facebook advertising, Twitter, anything like that, or has all your marketing been organic?
All of it has been organic. To be perfectly honest, we've struggled or are struggling to find kind of like a compounding marketing channel, a distribution channel. I feel like a large part of it is just kind of chipping away at it and kind of grinding for years until you build that base that can then compound. So I get that, a part of it is just patience. But at the same time, it has been like a source of frustration. Like I want, to like snap my fingers and have 50,000 monthly visitors to my site.
Don't we all? Don't we all? Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. It'll come. And what I like about the new, but I love the name. Where how did you? It's Newsletterglue, right? So it glues together all of the mailing systems out there. Pretty much the most popular ones. It says what it does on the box. The name says it all. I'm going to glue your newsletters together, and you're not all you. Even you don't have to log into that SaaS that is the mailing system. Because most mailing systems are SaaSes. You can do everything in the WordPress dashboard. You can build your plugins, your emails, and what I love about it, and there are very similar plugins out there on the market that will allow you to publish and then push out to various social mediums. One thing that Newsletter doesn't do, I don't think, is, although it pushes it out to email, are you thinking about auto publishing to the social mediums as well, or does it do that already?
It doesn't do that already.
There you go.
Maybe something called Social Glue.
Invoices in the post.
Social glue, I love it.
Social glue. You could call it social glue, but I think that would be a nice add-on, because if I'm writing a newsletter and I want to connect that newsletter to, generally I see a lot of people posting independently of their newsletter on their Facebook pages or their Facebook groups and Twitter. So maybe you need to do an add-on which will allow you to publish it to the social mediums as well, and then it will be the complete system, because I love the idea of it. I love the idea of writing in the Gutenberg editor. I love the idea that you've got some patterns in there, but then to be able to publish to social mediums at the same time would be just awesome. So get on with it.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. Thank God Andrew was here, because listeners, you had to deal with my technical problems. So we're going to continue the discussion with Lesley, and you'll be able to watch that on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. You'll be able to watch the whole interview, plus the bonus content. So like I say, we're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. So Lesley, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and Newsletterglue?
Well, they can head to newsletterglue.com, spelt exactly how it sounds, for the plugin. And they can find me on Twitter, where I'm super active, at Lesley, LESLEY_pizza.
That's great. And Andrew, what's the best way to find out more about what you're up to and what your views are?
This is andrewpalmer.com, and that's got all of my socials on it, and my plugins places, and Bertha.ai, of course. And I'm omnipresent, so you can always contact me through any of the channels.
TikTok.
In the bonus content, I'm going to be asking, Lesley where she wants Newsletterglue to be in a year's time, and what's the WordPress community like in Singapore in general. Like I say, to listen to the rest of the interview, go over to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel, subscribe, give us a thumbs up and comment. It's all appreciated. We'll be back next week with another great guest, another great interview. We'll see you soon. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
So, thank God for that bit of my technical problems. But we got there, didn't we? So, like I say, Lesley, where would you like to be with Newsletterglue in about a year's time? Yeah, where would you like it to be? You know, you must have some vision. And I think in a year's time, it's possible to have a plausible goal. Because if you put it too far out, it's just a dream, really. But where would you like it to be in a year's time?
I think the most important thing for me is to have, like I mentioned earlier, a marketing channel that's working, that we can just kind of, you know, pour rocket fuel on, double down, and see how far we can take that. Right now, we're kind of in experiment mode. So lots of eggs in different baskets, trying to see which marketing channels work. So you're going to hear from me and see lots of funny projects I'll be launching in the next few weeks and months. So yeah, so that's kind of the main thing, I guess. And then in terms of the product, I guess one thing that we're doing a lot of this year is integrating plugins. So not just email service providers, because so let's take like WooCommerce or LearnDash, for example, right? So like you've got, you know, this big massive plugin, and you want to then market and send email marketing to your subscribers, to your course students, customers, all of that stuff. And right now there isn't really a great way to do that easily. So let's say you have your WooCommerce products, right? You want to have 5 of your products and just put in a newsletter and send it out. You can't really do that if you're on MailChimp, right? You have to manually copy and paste the images, put in the price and all of that. But imagine if you could just, you know, you already have the WooCommerce blocks, just drag and drop it into your newsletter and you're done. So
Perfect.
Stuff like that, I'm pretty excited about and hoping to, fingers crossed, build that out this year. So yeah.
And then that also turns your product pages, or that also turns that into a blog post. So what you're, you know, why we developed Bertha was because people have problems getting content together, right? So what you're solving as Newsletterglue is you're solving the content generation issue, because as soon as you start a newsletter and publish that and send that out to your tribe, you created a blog post.
Yeah.
So you've got, you know, that it's a double whammy, isn't it? And we're always talking about in this business of repurposing content. So we've immediately sent out a newsletter to our tribe. It could be 20 or 30 or 50 or 1,000 or 10,000, whatever it may be. But we've also immediately created a blog post that we can then cross-purpose across social media, across all of the channels. So I think that's really your messaging, is the repurposing of, I'm not giving you advice, I am giving you advice, but I'm saying that this is how I would sell Newsletterglue to people. It's repurpose your emails rather than having to do things twice. We're always trying to save time, aren't we? And making sure that we're getting the message out to the right channels. And, you know, that I think Newsletterglue solves that issue straight away. It's a great product. I
also don't know if you agree with this, Andrew and Lesley. I think some of the most successful people in the plugin WordPress ecosystems have been those that have a real understanding of the user, of who precisely their target audience is. Like I was saying to Andrew about Divi, I sometimes take the mickey out of Divi, but the founder of Divi, I totally admire him because he totally understands who the core user base are of the Divi page builder. He totally understands what its key target audience and always has. So have you struggled with that really, to try and really understand who are your ideal avatar, your target audience? And is that something ongoing that's on your mind, Lesley?
Yeah, that's like, and I'm sure Andrew can attest to that. Like, it's something that's permanently on my mind, never leaves my mind. That and positioning, which Andrew was talking about earlier. Like, how do you sell? Like, what's that proposition, that key proposition that you talk about? So like those two things are kind of permanently on my mind. And yeah, so like to what you're saying, Andrew, about repurposing. So it's right there on the top of our site, and you can let me know if this resonates or not. But the way that I like to talk about it is we halve your publishing time and double your reach or double your distribution.
Yeah.
Because it's much faster. You don't have to copy and paste. You don't have to do that stuff. And then once you publish straight to newsletter and blog at the same time. So that's kind of how we talk about it.
Yeah. And how is scheduling? Do you have a schedule calendar, or are you thinking about inputting so I write 10 blog posts and then I put them into Newsletterglue and I say, right, I want to schedule these for 2 p.m. on a Thursday PST. Is that facility in the Newsletterglue as well, or is that something coming?
Yeah, so the cheeky thing is, because we use the block editor, so we just use the scheduling features of the block editor as well. So you just schedule it as you would a post.
Okay. Have you thought about putting a calendar in there so that I can do it? Because a lot of people, these repurposing people, 10x your productivity. So I can sit down in one day and write 15 blog posts and then schedule that out in a calendar using Newsletterglue, rather than having to figure out on those 15, putting the publish date on the blog post itself, or go live on this date. And that, so as soon as if I publish that as a blog post, does Newsletterglue automatically then send that out as an email?
Yep.
That's so kind of thing it does. So I would have to go manually into each blog post and make sure that I'm matching the schedule, and I'd have to have a calendar sitting next to me and work out the dates and everything. If that's a nice little add-on.
But that's how you would do it with if you were writing the blog post anyway, right? You have to do it that way.
Yeah, you do. But I'm thinking about maybe adding a bit of USP to Newsletterglue and making it a scheduler as well. So, that's another product idea. And that it takes away the pain of having to think about what we're having to do, because whenever, when we've got a blank page, we're looking at it and saying, how am I going to write this stuff? Oh, hello, then I'll use Bertha, or I'll use another AI, or whatever it might be. And what I'm trying to do in the WordPress community is make, with all the plugins that we buy, we've acquired a few plugins, but we've improved them, and we're continually improving them. We're trying to add functions or functionality to it that actually makes it a no-brainer to use it. So if I've got Newsletterglue and it's got a calendar scheduler or a content scheduler, and I then build all those blog posts, and then I just drop down and say, right, these are all the blog posts that I want to go out in the next 7 weeks, and then Newsletterglue just takes over that functionality for me. I think that would be a good little add-on for you. That's all.
Nice.
Because it's a really cool product. It really is.
Sure. So what's the startup community stroke WordPress community like in Singapore, Lesley? Can you give a quick outline? Is there a lot of buzz in Singapore around startups? And obviously it's well known as a business hub, but I don't know what the startup community and what's it like to around advice, around getting investment, maybe you can give a general picture.
I think it's changed a lot in the past 5 years. So if you'd asked me this question maybe 10 years ago, then the answer would be, crickets. But in the past 5 years, it's actually gotten really, really vibrant, I would say. Lots of VCs, throwing money around. And we've got most recently the TikTok regional office just started in Singapore, and they're paying outrageous prices to steal employees across the tech industry in Singapore, and so lots of people joining there, and lots of incubators and co-working / incubator spaces coming up as well. Yeah, so I'd say that the community is pretty vibrant. It's obviously not as mature as some other countries or cities, but I think the money is there, the talent is there. Maybe not, you're not going to get someone who's worked in Microsoft for 20 years and helped launch Excel or something like that, who's able to advise you, just sitting around in a Singaporean coffee shop. But I think there are lots. There's lots going on, and yeah.
Yeah, it's got a reputation. Obviously, I know a little bit about the history of Singapore, but I don't know. I've never been there, but I do get the impression it's a pretty expensive city to live in. Does that affect? Because obviously, startups, younger people, one of the things is they can't always afford these high living costs. Is that one of the drawbacks of Singapore?
Yeah, for sure. And I think people in Singapore tend to be extremely pragmatic and realistic about this sort of thing as well. So you are going to get lots of people who would love to start something and are just like, you know what, I'd rather earn 5K and go work for someone else, hate it, but it's going to put a roof over my head. And I think like that's very, very common among Singaporeans. And yeah, not much you can do about that. I think our housing prices are some of the highest in the world. Car for sure, like top 3 maybe highest in the world, because we've got outrageous taxes on cars. So like a Toyota is going to cost you like 150 grand or something like that. Something crazy. Completely crazy. Yeah.
Similar in Australia, actually, that the luxury car tax is 100%. So if you, for instance, bought a base Aston Martin in this country for say £130,000, in Australia it would be the equivalent of £260,000. It's 100% duty on.
Yeah, and Aston Martin's going to cost you 800,000 in Singapore.
Yeah, exactly. So. It's crazy. It is, and Sweden in Europe have very, very similar rules. I had a car in this country which was a lovely cruiser, an American car, and I went over there for a promo, and the guy picked me up in his car, and I said, "Oh, nice car." He said, "Yeah, it costs 3 times more than yours did, and it's exactly the same model." So, it's about saving the planet, really, isn't it?
So, has COVID affected Singapore? Has it been, like, a lot of countries, it's been difficult. Hopefully you're, I don't know what the restrictions still are in Singapore around COVID, or can you give a quick how difficult it's been to do your startup and to get this going in a period of COVID?
So I think I've actually benefited a lot from COVID in the sense that, a lot of the things that, like WordCamps and stuff in the US, which I would never have been able to be a part of because of COVID, they all went online, and I was able to do a bunch of talks in WordCamps, which was really cool, and meet a bunch of people, again, who I would otherwise not have met because they'd be living their lives outside and in person. But because they all came online, I was able to meet and get to know lots of people, which was really cool. And also I work from home and have been kind of working from home in some way for the past, 5, 6, 7 years now. I used to work in a co-working space and gave that up over COVID. But, in terms of, I didn't really have like an office life that I had to give up. So it wasn't a big struggle for me. Everything is remote. So before I ran Newsletterglue, I was running a digital agency, and I worked with lots of freelancers all over the world. So I was used to everything, working remotely anyway. So I think for me, COVID, work-wise at least, was good. It wasn't so good when I got COVID 2 weeks ago.
Good.
But yeah, so in terms of work, I think it's been good.
Yeah.
Are you over it now? Have you got your sense of smell back, or did you lose any taste? Or
interestingly, I didn't lose my sense of smell, but the only thing I lost was like I couldn't like tea now sucks for me. Like it just tastes like I don't know,
Metal.
dirty dishwasher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which like I drink lots of tea, so it sucks that now tea doesn't taste nice
Somebody
anymore.
once said to me, if I got COVID and lost my taste, it would mean that I've lost nothing because I just don't have any taste. Simple as that.
All right, I'm not going to comment on that. Lesley, it's been a joy having you on the show. We suffered through. Lesley had some minor technical problems. I had, and you had to jump in, but I think it's been a great interview. We'll see you soon, folks, with another great interview. Andrew won't be here next week. He's traveling.
Germany.
He's
Germany.
in Germany. Hopefully you have a safe journey, Andrew. Like I say, we'll be back next week, folks. We'll see you soon. Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.
See ya.